So while we're waiting for some of the PowerPoints to come up, I hope people have been able to digest a lot of that information that came kind of like a fire hose from straight from Italy. It's so interesting to hear what a mature cooperative environment could look like. So something certainly to aspire to, but a lot of tidbits in there that I know. Our trip to Emilia Romagna was 5 years ago, but we're still kind of reeling all of the information that we took out of that region. So my name is Arzina Hamir. I'm an organic farmer from the Comox Valley region of Vancouver Island. My husband and I own Amara Farm, where we grow about 47, 48 now, I think, different fruits and vegetables. I'm also an elected official in our regional government. So I'm Area B Director on the Comox Valley Regional District. And in 2015, myself and 5 other farmers started Merville Organics Growers Cooperative. It was a marketing and aggregation cooperative that helped us as micro farmers. We were each earning less than 30,000 at the time we joined to grow and able to develop and access markets that we couldn't initially when we were so small. The panel that's here today is going to talk about experiences of some of the smaller cooperatives, but also some resources that are available for cooperatives who are interested in growing, diversifying, investing. As we just heard, you know, it's such an important part of co-op development is being able to, I'm going to use that word again, pivot when your customers, when your members require you to. So having that ability, that cushion for you to be able to do so either has to be built in internally, or as we'll hear, potentially there can be supports outside of the community. Now, one of our panelists, Derek Pulowski from the Cowichan Valley, was unable to join us today due to health reasons and family matters. So he sent his presentation, which I'm going to read out first, and then we'll move on to Paulo and to Gary. And I believe Elliot is also with us on Zoom, so we'll hear from Elliot as well. So if you'll just forgive me, pretend I'm Derek, which is very different looking person, but this is the voice of Derek speaking as the executive director of the Cowichan Community Cooperative. So the Co-op was incorporated in 2015 after a group of small scale, local, sustainability-minded farmers came together and acknowledged that at the time, the government support in the area for agriculture didn't necessarily support them or include them. The idea was to create a cooperative that provided a consistent sales avenue that would save the farmers extra work time and allow them more space and resources to focus on their businesses and grow great food. For the cooperative, an online farmers market was created and intended to be the core revenue generating and business sustaining pillar of the co-op. It was the first online farmers market in BC. Van City supported us and provided us a $10,000 line of credit to get started. The reality was that it was very slow to pick up momentum and generate sales. Sales ticked along at a very slow pace for 4 years, and the co-op's business expenses had to be covered by a patchwork of public grants, by BC, a Van City Environment Grant, a grant to create a cookbook, a private marketing and branding grant through Community Evolution, huge support from our parent organization, Cowichan Green Community, and interns provided through Canada Summer Jobs, VIU, Vancouver Island University, etc. In early 2020, COVID was announced. We pivoted our model to include home deliveries, and sales went up 10 times in 2 weeks. We needed support fast to purchase infrastructure, grow our staff, and keep up with the pace. Local producers saw their main sales avenue drop out from under them as restaurants and farmers markets closed. So we cut our sales margins, onboarded every local farmer producer that fit our guidelines, and took it on as our responsibility to support local agriculture. Our longtime supporter and partner, Community Evolution, committed an emergency response grant, which helped us to pay for racks, totes, and some operations HR. Simultaneously, we were provided a job creation partnership grant from the BC Ministry of Finance and Poverty Reduction to A, provide 2 EI eligible participants with employable experience, and B, establish our home delivery system. Even though sales increased, so did our expenses, and sales haven't maintained at the peak levels that they did at the onset of COVID. We are at this fragile state of having the potential for growing into a much larger organization and cooperative that serves our community, while the cost to run such an organization increases. Simultaneously, there is this new field of competitors in the marketplace, as many stores, both local to big box, now offer online sales and home deliveries. In a sense, we are pinched by our values of keeping our margins strictly low in order to put as much money as possible into the hands of our farmers and local producers. We face difficulty in expanding our lines of credit unless it is for a specific project that can be shown to increase revenue, such as buying a van, rather than simply our increased weekly operations. Our hardest hitting expense is HR, while we work to gain efficiencies in our operations and try to stay on top of all the moving parts that are involved in a cooperative. We have been greatly supported by our partners at the Cowichan Green community by sharing resources and access to grants, and our partners at Community Evolution, who continue to fund the role of a community facilitator, whose aim is to continue supporting us through economic sustainability and to develop and empower the democratic and cooperative nature of our governance. We've also found success and support through government grants, such as the aforementioned Job Creation Partnership Grant and a Supply Chain Resiliency Grant that has allowed us to hire a lean consultant, invest in infrastructure and technology upgrades. We are working hard to become a cooperative that is not grant supported. But in this time of inconsistent and unpredictable sales, we find ourselves continuing to seek grant funding for different aspects of the cooperative's growth or sustainability. So a little bit of a sobering story from the Cowichan, but I think it's really important that we do hear both of the good stories and some of the challenges that cooperatives face. So I'm going to turn it over to Paulo now, who is the president of Valley First Credit Union, to speak on this idea of investment. We'll go through the panel and then I'll take questions both from the floor. I'll check on Huva and if there's anyone on Zoom. So if you can either type your questions in the chat or hold on to them and we can unmute you after. So hope that works. Go ahead.
Thank you, Arzina. And thank you, everyone. Thank you for BC Co-op for inviting me today. It's been a very interesting conversation this morning. I would like to also take the opportunity to introduce Toby Frisk. He's our Director of Agriculture for Valley First. I've been in the cooperative movement for not only in my profession with the credit union, but also in the agriculture industry, as my dad and I own a farm in the Naramata Bench. So we have been farming for 38 years on the bench there. So we have a passion for agriculture and passion for the cooperative system. Today, I just really want to talk about some opportunities that we have, especially if you're a new cooperative wanting to come in, and what are some ideas that we can do to help you with accessing funds to be able to start your business and to be able to help you. So one of the things is really telling the story, and that is really that business plan, a true good business plan that's built and that will show how this story is going to continue as this cooperative starts. One of the things to look at when you're building out your business plan is look at other cooperatives that you may know that's similar to what you're trying to achieve throughout British Columbia or even Canada, because then that helps that piece. Because we have two ways of being able provide funding. It's not just the conventional way through our through Valley First, but we also have which is our First West Capital that provides mezzanine financing for especially for startups. And it's really, if they're able to see the story and able to see the projection, we're able to find ways to provide funding for that cooperative. One of the things to think about as well is a lot of people think, oh, I need real estate to be able to secure what I need. And sometimes what we forget is the people that are coming together to actually build that cooperative are of good character and they have a great idea. And sometimes their guarantee could be enough for us to get things started. So those are just some ideas to think about as you start planning that out. The big thing though is partnerships, and obviously Valley First all partners with EDC and BDC. But one of the things that we as credit unions, we tend to sometimes just go on your own and we're looking at, well, we're not going to be able to help you. So I'll just share an example of some of the things that we're doing is really partnering with other cooperatives, with other organizations to be able to still provide the funding that the organization needs. So we have a new startup that's starting. It's in the agriculture industry in our market, and projections look good. There's, obviously the cash flow is going to come, but we actually minimize the risk by partnering with Farm Credit. So both organizations came together and advanced the funds for this organization to start building their business. So as you're coming into your financial institution to look for capital or look for funds, challenge them to, it's not just for them not to do it on their own. Who else could they partner with to be able to do that? Because you might be able to get more funding that way, because then the organizations are reducing the risk through that partnership. So that's just an interesting way of kind of thinking about things. The other area that I think provides, and this is really our model, and I'll just share a little bit of our model, is really sharing the resources between co-ops. We're working with a cooperative that wants to start in the Okanagan, and they're thinking of going on their own. But they're forgetting. So I sat down with them and I said, well, there's other cooperatives here in the Okanagan. Why don't we partner? And you're able to maybe get things started, because now you're not investing in land because the other cooperative already has it. Maybe you're not investing in HR because the other cooperative already has it. So it's a similar model to what we are as Valley First. So our model is we have First West Credit Union. First West Credit Union came together by Envision, Valley First, Enderby and District Credit Union, and Island Savings. So 4 cooperatives, 4 credit unions coming together to be able to continue doing our business in today's market. What we're really doing is really sharing the costs of HR, costs of marketing, costs of communication, which can be very expensive if you take that all on yourself. So these are some of the things that as new cooperatives, if you're wanting to start, look at other options, look at other ways to partner to be able to help you through that new adventure that you're trying to establish. And it's been very good for us because of just it's cooperatives coming together. So for them to be able to continue to be sustainable in today's business. So that's now an older a cooperative that's been in the community for 75 plus years. But I think that kind of model can also be done with our with new startups. So lots of opportunity. The thing is a really good business plan, really tell your story, and challenge the financial institutions to think different when you're coming in to do your applications. Can they partner with somebody else? Can they be your partner? And I think those are the things that we need to think about as we continue in the cooperative movement. So with that, that is pretty much, and I'll pass it on to.
Great. We'll go for Gary next.
Oh, I was just going to say, sorry, I forgot. Sorry about that. I'll just do one more. There is actually great resources with agriculture, British Columbia of Agriculture, and there's this really neat document there. It's called Financing Agriculture Cooperatives, and it's got some really good information that we can also take as you build that plan out.
Thanks. So next, we have Gary Fratten from the BC Ministry of Agriculture, Farm Business and Management Specialist. I'm going to leave it to Gary if you want to further introduce yourself, but we'll take it away.
Sure. Am I waiting for the slides or do I push the button or what do I do here?
We'll pull up your slide deck there.
Oh, maybe. Do I click it again? Technology, gotta love it, eh?
While we're waiting, you don't often hear bankers telling you to challenge themselves. So is that a cooperative sort of mindset, or is that something part of the culture of Valley First?
I think it's both cooperative mindset and it's our culture. One of the things that we came together, Valley First came together with 5 individuals that had this idea and created a culture. And I think the culture and the cooperative system goes really hand in hand. And it's really important that I think we've kind of gotten away from people challenging financial institutions to look different and think different. And I think we have a great opportunity now.
Great. I see we're still just trying to pull up the presentation. Does anyone have any questions while we're waiting for that? Go ahead. Do you want to speak in the mic? Or
quick question about co-op. Are they selling into retail or institutions?
okay, I'll repeat that question. So the question was for the Cowichan co-op. If they were selling to retailers and institutions. I believe so. And I believe that was actually the initial model, was to aggregate produce from a number of small farms and then be able to sell that to restaurateurs and to grocery stores who were requiring larger quantity. I guess COVID allowed them to shift into more of a home delivery. There were always individuals purchasing. And I know this because I was watching what was happening. You know, Cowichan's just two communities south of us. So it was really interesting to watch what was happening. But yes, institutional purchasing was part of that initial phase. I think with restaurants kind of closing during COVID, that may have really restricted, but yeah. All right, I see the slide deck up. So take it away, Gary.
There we go. Thanks for your help on the technology side. I would have been lost, I'm sure. So anyway, I would like to thank the organizers of the conference for giving us the opportunity to attend and speak at this meeting. My name is Gary Flayton, and I'm a Farm Business Management Specialist with the Ministry of Ag and Food. And as we begin, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that I'm speaking in Kamloops within the unceded ancestral lands of the Secwepemc Nation. This presentation is about BC's agribusiness planning programs. Applications for the BC's agribusiness planning program will reopen in spring of 2022 to support producers and food processors through 3 business planning streams. Number 1, the business plan coaching, 2, business disaster recovery planning, and 3, specialized business planning. There are common eligibility criteria to all 3 programs, but they do differ slightly. Please see guides on our website for more exact details. But roughly speaking, you must be either 1, a primary agriculture and or seafood producer producing products which are 100% grown, caught, or raised in BC are intended for sale. 2, or a processor of which 51% or more of the direct cost of producing the product in its final form is processed and packaged in BC. 3, all the proprietors, partners, members, and shareholders must be residents of British Columbia. And 4, the manager must be actively engaged in completing their business plan with the guidance from a qualified business consultant. Non-eligible activities include legal, accounting, and other costs associated with implementing the action plan, legal agreements between any stakeholders or separate businesses such as wills, powers of attorney, title searches, etc. Acquiring capital assets or on-farm investment, planning and or related fees, and income tax preparation, bookkeeping, and or associated costs with business risk management programs such as production insurance, agri-stability, agri-invest, or agri-recovery. Marketing support is not included, but marketing support is available through the BC Agri-Food and Seafood Market Development and BC Partnership programs. So now that I've covered the common eligibility criteria, I will go into the specific criteria for each program. So 1, business plan coaching. What this program offers is up to $3,000 for support from a qualified business consultant to further develop small and new farmers' business plans and improve business management skills. Funding for the support will be from qualified business consultants, will be on a first come, first served basis, FIFO, to qualified applicants until funding has been fully allocated. Access by applicants to qualified business consultant will depend on individual consultant availability. The specific criteria are: your reported total farm annual gross revenue must be less than $30,000 in the previous 2 years reported to CRA. This applies to any agricultural business owned by any of the business entity owners, members, or shareholders. The primary agricultural producer who submits a written draft plan must demonstrate the business has or will generate total annual gross revenues of greater than $30,000 within the next 3 years. For example, if you are growing perennial plants like berries, tree fruits, grapes, etc., it will take a while to reach full maturity or that amount of income. A draft business plan must be submitted along with your application. Having a draft business plan allows the applicant and the consultant to concentrate their efforts on the highest priority business planning and management areas, making best use of your time with the consultant. Two, the Business Disaster Recovery Planning Program. What this program offers is up to $5,000 in business planning services and coaching for individuals, and up to $20,000 for groups from a qualified business consultant to develop an immediate and long-term recovery plan. The eligibility criteria are: you have been impacted by an external and traumatic event that interrupts the normal production of flow of operations and puts the stability of the business at risk. Examples include, of which we've had a lot of, fire, flood, drought, tornado, disease outbreak, COVID death, or illness. And your reported total annual gross revenues must be greater than $30,000 in the year previous reported to CRA. The program is flexible to focus on different aspects of recovery, whether it's financial, strategy, human resources, etc. And in addition to a combination of specialized business planning eligible activities, an additional new activity includes assistance from a qualified business consultant to go through the taking stock, and there's 2 books, Wildfire or Flood Recovery Workbook. The third program is specialized business programming. And what this program offers is up to $5,000 in business planning and services and coaching for individuals, and up to $20,000 for groups to develop a plan on one or a combination of the following: business structures, production economics, business strategy, cash flow and financial analysis, value-added ventures, risk assessment and mitigation, human resources, succession and transition planning. Eligibility criteria in that your reported total annual gross revenues must be greater than $30,000 per year reported to CRA. We can go into more detail into any one of these areas. And for example, a strategic human resource plan, it can include the following items listed on the slide that you can read, but I'm not going to talk specifically about those. However, knowing how to manage a farm or a processing business involves a broad range of skills and knowledge. By increasing the adoption of business management best practices through targeted programming, this will, we hope, increase the viability, capacity, and profitability for both producers and processors. In fact, in a 2015 Ipsos dollars and cents national studies, whose purpose was to establish the degree to which business management practices are direct drivers of financial success, the review taken from Farm Management Canada concluded that the success of any enterprise, regardless of size, production sector, or location, is directly related to the business management practices of the manager. It has also been proven that there are connections between positive mental health and advanced business management practices. Producers and processors who regularly follow a written business plan say it contributes to better peace of mind and more effective coping mechanisms. The BC Indigenous Agricultural Development Program supports Indigenous peoples' success in food and agriculture sector. It's like a sister program to the BC's agribusiness planning programs, and I won't go into details here. However, it is similar and details are outlined on the website. A study by the ministry found that there are three main barriers to entry among new entrants. Based on these three main pillars, here are the barriers and the corresponding programs to help with support, and they are access to land, supported by the BC Land Matching Program, delivered by the Young Agrarians. To be able to increase business and production knowledge, supported by the Young and New Entrant Skill Development Program, administered by BC Young Farmers. And access to capital, supported by the Small Farm Business Acceleration Pilot Program that supported new and small farms through cost-shared funding to purchase equipment and infrastructure. I believe some of these programs are highlighted in other presentations. I just wanted to say, don't miss another webinar or workshop. I would encourage you to get on the AgriService BC distribution list. Emails are sent directly to you and you will connect with experts. AgriService BC provides funding, tools, and services to help farm businesses develop their production and business skills to succeed in BC. For all the previous mentioned programs, there are more details on how to prepare your application, eligible activities, timelines, and guides on the Ag and Food website. Those who want more information about BC's agribusiness planning programs can contact myself. And here's my information. And I believe there's some things attached to the HUVA website. There's some materials there, and there's some materials down below there too as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Gary. And before we transition on to Elliot, just one question around the different business planning models. As we heard earlier on that it's so important to have a strong business plan when you're approaching financing. Of those three streams, which one do you think would be sort of best suited for a cooperative to come to for business planning service?
I don't know which one would be better, but probably the third one, because you're probably looking for more specialized, you're probably along the track of being more specialized and looking for specialized assistance. The first one is basically for kind of just startups and news. And then of course this middle one's for disasters. So I think you would concentrate on the third one, and there are a number of different areas within there. So.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much. So I'm just double checking that we have Elliot on the Zoom. Elliot Bridgewater is legal counsel for Community and Cooperative Council in Calgary. So Elliot, I see your photo.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for the other panel discussions here. It's very interesting, and I'm sorry I missed the panel before this. That sounded fascinating, and I'd love to follow up on some of the international inspirations that we have going for us in the co-op movement. And more to that point, I want to build on some of that and talk a little bit more generally today about cooperative investment as a practical but also a political solution to the crises of the 21st century that we are seeing unfold all around us. Before I get into that, just on terms of what we're doing, I am a co-founder along with Bill Wemikin of Community and Cooperative Council. We are two lawyers with a wealth of cooperative experience, and we are working with the BC Co-op Association as well as the Alberta Community and Cooperative Association and other associations across the country to build, consolidate, and affect best practices in the cooperative sector that really meet the challenges of the 21st century. So a couple examples of what we're doing is first of all, helping, assisting ACCA and BCCA in setting up a co-op of shared services for co-op members to avail themselves of legal services, accounting, communications, IT, marketing, and to make those more focused on serving cooperative principles and needs, as well as nonprofit sector, and lowering some of the barriers to entry in availing those services. The other one is a cooperative investment federation that is in the process of being established, that will include a software platform that will assist investment co-ops in forming and administering securities offering, assisting in member communication, and probably most importantly in regulatory compliance, to just make it a lot easier to administer and manage in investment cooperatives and in solidarity with other co-ops across Western Canada. You know, what I want to move on from, and one of the topics that came up is challenges to the co-op sector here in the 21st century, and challenging other cooperators. And I would like to do that as well. You know, we live in unprecedented and unusual times. We're dealing with global powers directly embroiled in a European conflict, the biggest one since World War II. And this is a huge human toll, but it's also incredibly disruptive to the global economy. You know, especially in agriculture, we're seeing, you know, potentially 30% of international wheat exports from Russia and Ukraine threatened, as well as Ukraine being a major leading exporter in vegetable oils and sunflower oils. We're seeing, you know, historical inflation, 5% in Canada as of January, 8% in the US as February. This was before this war really became bogged down. Rising gas prices obviously threaten global trade. Supply chain issues, strained government budgets, climate change, a global pandemic, and the continued decline of rural and local economies. So in this rapidly changing world, I'd suggest, and in fact advocate, that you know, business as usual is no longer effective. In such times, we realize that economic decisions are community decisions. They are political decisions. Business structures are built on the assumptions and principles behind them. Cooperative structures place service to members, to community, democratic decision-making, solidarity, and independence at the center of what they are, legally and practically. Other structures prioritize speculative plays, short-term best interests, and exit strategies. In professional communities in particular, lawyers and accountants have tended over the last 30 years to present cooperatives in Canada as an uncertain unknown or as unnecessarily restrictive. However, I disagree. Cooperatives are a conscious decision by community leaders to do business differently for and by regular people, for their communities. And we are working to raise the profile of cooperatives within professional communities across Canada through university education involvement. The latest, I've been involved with law students at the University of Calgary and developing advocacy programs for co-ops, as well as professional education courses that we're going to be working on and launching here in the next year. I want to reinforce this by saying cooperatives are not just a means to make more democratically accountable business decisions. Specifically in the topic of today, we're talking about a deeper form of co-op membership than perhaps your membership at the grocery co-op, with proportionally greater and diverse benefits to members, including capital returns, but also social environmental returns. Cooperatives are vehicles to raise capital for and by community and form real engines for economic development and community well-being. I personally have seen a resurgence of interest in the co-op model for raising capital for members and for community across Western Canada. In the last 2 years, we have assisted Several leadership groups realized their vision for economic development in their communities by forming investment co-ops or by expanding their securities offerings to members. These projects have been tailored to local needs and reflect a diversity of priorities depending on unique needs of every community. From the Bow Valley to the Peace Country, the Kootenays, Vancouver Island, we've seen solar energy installation be cooperatively organized and capitalized from members and from community. In Bragg Creek, Southern Alberta, and the BC interior, we are seeing the same for fiber optic cooperatives. In Eastern Alberta, we see shortline railway and grain distribution cooperatives being cooperatively organized and restructured to succession plan for the next generation of farmers and community members with great success. In Vermilion, the Crow's Nest Pass, and other communities, we see community members cooperatively purchasing and renovating commercial property to support local entrepreneurs. So this is happening, and we're part of a movement to make sure that these leadership groups aren't constantly reinventing the wheel. We need leadership groups to understand that this is an option, and to have the tools at hand to make this happen without suffering exhaustion or needing heroic means to create these democratic enterprise for the communities. To speak at some of the successes we've had tacit recognition by securities regulators in Alberta and BC that cooperative investment is responsible investment at the local level in particular. And we continue to work with regulators and governments to facilitate community investment for and by regular working Canadians. Regulators, government, and the public alike have to understand that investment is not the exclusive domain of bankers, accountants, lawyers, and the wealthy. The real investment that matters has historically come from regular working people, and that investment is the resilient foundation of our nation's economy, and often has a cooperative origin. We are working to streamline precedents and legal processes to make investing through cooperatives easier and more cost-effective. As an example of this, we're working to use cooperative tax laws more effectively to maximize the benefit of cooperatives, member ownership, and business with members. All cooperatives, including investment-oriented cooperatives, can take advantage of certain tax exemptions that many cooperatives are unaware of or underutilizing. So Section 135 of the Income Tax Act, for instance, permits cooperatives to pay out patronage to members and customers and deduct such patronage from their taxable revenues in a way that is unavailable to corporations. For agricultural co-ops, this benefit is increased by the ability of ag co-ops to issue tax-deferred cooperative shares to members and deduct as much as 85% from their taxable revenue while retaining that capital for ongoing business purposes. So there are advantages. They are somewhat unwieldy. They probably need to be advocated for to be streamlined, as many of our other exemptions need to, but they do exist, and we're working to make them more cost-effective, accessible, and understood by professional service providers and cooperators. So this exemption in particular may not last forever. It's set to expire in 2026. So cooperatives and associations representing them should take a close look at whether such instruments are a benefit to them and whether we can advocate to expand them or streamline them. Cooperatives are a practical tool for raising capital for members in a responsible way that tend to present more responsible local investment opportunities in the face of a securities market that every day seems more disconnected from the reality of real economics, i.e. how we get food on our table. They become more speculative and esoteric seemingly by the month, with developments such as crypto and some bordering on the bizarre, with such devices as bits of digital pictures of monkeys being traded as if they were stock in companies and fetching large sums of money on quasi security markets. And I would point out that co-op investment is distinct from that. It is a tool to keep our feet on the ground, making sure our families and children have functional communities to live in and prosper well into the future. In finishing, I will return to what I believe really matters in all of this. We must realize that the solutions to the crises of the 21st century will come from regular people working together in solidarity for themselves and for their communities. We cannot rely on experts, politicians, tech plutocrats, faraway corporate offices, or any other self-ordained saviors. We must invest ourselves and our capital in ventures in our community if we want them to survive and thrive for the next generation. Business as usual will not work in unusual times. When I look at what is happening in the Ukraine, when we see regular Ukrainians doing incredible things, making unimaginable sacrifices to defend their communities and country, this is inspiring, but we don't need to wait. to save our communities and our local economies. We need to start now. I do believe democratic accountability can and does start with our investment in it, and this investment is best done cooperatively. Thanks.
Before I open it up to questions, Elliot, we heard from Gary that there are support services from the Ministry of Agriculture for business planning, but that the legal accounting supports did not qualify. Could you maybe describe a little bit more about that back-end support service that you were speaking of in cooperation with the BC Co-op Association that provides that level of support in legal accounting?
Sorry, this is the kind of support for professional services
Yes.
in terms of grant, like public funding.
Well, where can people find out more information? We have some, obviously some cooperatives in the room who might be interested in accessing that service itself. So maybe if you could describe what it's called, where our websites or.
Yeah, so the professional services, and I know there are people in the conference right now that can speak to that. Corinne Rempel is taking the lead on access. Paul Sabai can of course speak with that, or anybody else involved in BCCA or ACCA. And I'm not exactly sure as to what the most preferred way of availing those services are right now. But perhaps we can share that right away. We're kind of in the building as we're driving mode of this right now, but we are launching services. I mean, obviously they include our services, CCC right now. I know that there's IT services that have been launched and communications services that we're building too. So I would encourage a conversation with Corinne or Paul to move that forward. Or of course you can contact me directly. And I can provide my contact information.
Great, thank you so much. So there's a question over Huva for Gary. In the specialized business planning stream, what qualifies as a group? Does a cooperative consisting of multiple individuals with one cooperative business account count only as a cooperative, or does it count as multiple businesses? Would you mind clarifying?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So if your group is just one person, then it's $5,000, I believe. If it's two people, it's $10,000. If it's three people, it's $15,000. And if it's four people, then it's that's the maximum $20,000. So depending on the size of the group that's actually applying, that'll dictate the funding.
So, I mean, it sounds like a co-op would be able to access that larger, even if they just have a single bank account. It's multiple individuals or multiple farms that are applying together.
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'll open it up to the floor and for anybody who's on Zoom. Go ahead. Sorry. And I'll just repeat that question for people who are online. So the question was, what makes a strong business plan, especially for someone who reads like Paulo here, who reads multiple business plans, has lots. What makes a business plan stand out?
So if you're a newer cooperative or a new business plan coming in, what would really stand out is the telling that story of what those projections are going to look like going forward, and what are the things that you're going to be doing to be able to achieve those projections. And if you can really tell that story, that really strengthens the business plan. If it's somebody that's been in business now for a while, what we normally do is we take a look at a little bit of past history. How have they been doing? What's the projections of that's coming along? Are we seeing improvement? Or are we seeing investment in the business? Because it's not just doing your business and taking out as much money as you want. Is there been investment back into the business? And then incorporate that. What does that projection looks like going forward? How are you going to continue improving that? So there's many different ways, but those would be two highlights that I would look at when I see a business plan.
Great, thanks. Go ahead. And maybe if you wouldn't mind speaking to the mic, just so that folks who are watching online. Thank you.
Also a question for Paulo. I'm curious about this point about kind of partnering between funders, and how, like, even as someone proposing a project or a cooperative business, have you seen any kind of successful models you can point to, or best practices in that regard, where you've really seen that a project that has brought together many funders has really come across strongly? Like, how, maybe do you have any suggestions how to approach something like that?
And obviously, the biggest one is when we partner with BDC and EDC, which is government supported programs. But there is the example that I shared was we have Farm Credit, who is very well known in the agriculture industry. So they provide for us a little bit more of that expertise. And then for us, we were the experts of maybe the accounts and obviously the lending piece. And how did we come together was basically there was this opportunity where Farm Credit was going, well, we're willing to help you, but we can't get to the point that you're really looking for. So by connecting with us, and we have an agreement between the two organizations, is so we looked at it and says, well, we could partner with that piece that you're still to get to where this business needed to get to. And so we collaborated that way. They did their piece, we did ours, and we were able to fund the full amount that the business was wanting it, but in a partnership with Farm Credit. So that's and I'm going to be transparent and honest. That's the very first one that we've done, and we are continuing to see what can we do to make that more of a reality than taking it all always by yourself. Hopefully that helps. Yeah.
Heather.
I heard the word unseated. Does everybody understand what that means? Because to me, it's only one meaning, but I think if we had 10 lawyers here, it would be 10 different explanations. Because we haven't surrendered anything or this land or anything like that. And when you've got investors on this land, it puts them in a kind of a risky position, if they don't deal with us. And it's coming to that point, so I think the people here got to start dealing with us. And it's not us that started that problem. We're just trying to straighten it out. Every time we went to court, we tried to get them to tell the truth, but they swear on their holy book, but they still don't tell the truth. They push that book aside and open another one. I don't know who writes that one. So somebody said something about the truth here, and I want to hear that. That's what I want to hear. There's been agreements made in this province, and it's written on that British Columbia flag, and stuff like that. It's all visible. And that's supposed to be a nation agreement. But that's been broken a long time ago by lawyers. They've got a good language to do that. So this cooperative is part of that deal I want to talk about too, because everything we're talking about has to do with the land and the water. And the trees are all gone now. The mills have shut down. So what's next? If you keep doing what you're doing, what's next to deplete? All the resources are leaving the country. Even the old growth trees are leaving the country. The coal is leaving the country. Potash is leaving the country. Making pipelines leave the country. And if you're going to make gardens and plants here, is it for the people or is that going to leave the country too? There are people starving on the streets down there. And they're poor housing. In BC, BC brags about the biggest contributor of lumber in the world, but there's poor housing right here in Kamloops on a reserve, you know. And now they describe people in this land here on the other side of the river. You know, when we're talking about cooperatives here, there used to be huge gardens on the other side of the river until they took that cannery down. And then Patterson brought these on food stores in. Are we talking about that with the small farmers? Is something big going to take over, you know? because people are from Vancouver are moving in this town now, selling their houses and buying a house in Kamloops for saving $200,000 because they're cheaper here. I hope it's not what we're talking about with the food and the smaller people, because I thought I came here for helping the smaller farmers and to become, you know, there's a story about, I come from up the river here, 1929, when things collapsed, people from town came to my people and wanted food for their kids, and our people fed them. You know, when that money collapsed, and when the war started in 1940, 1939, jobs came on, and the people in town started getting jobs, and the guys started getting money, and they already forgot who helped them. They forgot about us, and it didn't take long. So, you know, and with the knowledge that we have about the land, you know, it'd be quite valuable. And they want to come and ask us questions about the land again, we'll help, but as long as you don't use it against us again. You know, it's the way your courts talk. You know, what we say, they might use it against us, and I don't know. I don't want that to happen. So I hope that co-op includes us, you know, and the land here. We understand the land very well. We know what happened to it in the last few hundred years, why we need fertilizers at one time. The land didn't need those things at one time. A lot of things have changed, including the people and individuals. When you're talking about co-op, you got to have the tribal way of thinking, you know, helping one another. You're only the richest, you're poorest, you know, and those are the ones that are important. Those are the ones who help you work when you realize who's poor in this country. When we talk about riches, there's still lots of rich, poor people right in this town. So, you know, I don't want to throw a wrench in everything. Everything sounds beautiful the way you're talking, but we got to talk about the real things that are happening, you know. Undrinkable water, and there was these two great rivers and stuff like that. You know, that's one of the big things you need in growing food is water. And if you put that polluted water on your plants, is that progress? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Uncle Mike. I think as a farmer myself, and I think as an agricultural sector, we need to acknowledge the role that farming had in settling British Columbia, but in settling, I mean stealing land. We all farm on stolen land, and it's a truth. So I thank you for reminding us. I would hope that cooperative values in partnership and equality would be one of the ways that we can move forward to repair some of those previous wrongs. I'll leave it up to the room, but I know my heart is there. I saw a hand up from Heather. I think your heart is there too. So if anyone has any comments or questions on that too, please go ahead. Heather, did you want to say? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tony.
Thank you. I have a quick question for Paulo. First of all, though, my name is Tony. I am from Summerland and farming on leased ALR land. I recognize that Summerland, all of Summerland, is in the ancestral, unceded, and traditional territory of the Syilx people, the Okanagan Nation. The question I have for you, Paulo, is when you're making decisions about which businesses or cooperatives specifically you're going to support, I'm wondering if you look at the federal CALA program, which provides, you probably are totally aware of that, and if that has anything to do with the decision making that you need to make in order to determine whether or not you're able to support a cooperative.
The decision that we make to support the cooperative is basically it's a standalone decision on your cooperative and your plan and your idea. And the more programs that there is, then obviously that's going to make it easier for us to make that decision. But we really want to, when we're looking at making the decision to help an individual, the plan needs to stand on its own, and we're able to then make that decision. Hopefully that answers the question, but like that piece that you, that is an area that I just need to do a little bit more research on. Yeah.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay, this is a question for you too, Paul. In terms of, we support cooperative community farms, and on those farms, there may or may not be one or more full-time, part-time farmer or farm businesses on the farm. What the cooperative farms need and what we support them to do is to come up with what we call a whole farm plan. So it may include, it does include, of course, finances and business planning, but it includes way more than that. And I would say it needs to include as well relationships to the land, to the Indigenous people, environmental concerns and things like that. We have not applied to your program for support. We would like to. We have people who can actually act as experts to work with the farm co-op. But mostly the farm co-op, most cases, holds a title to the land, administers that, and they in turn have leases with whoever it is that works the land or has activity on the land. So it's a little bit different than what you offer, and I'm wondering if we could either respond to it or you and I could talk afterwards and see how we can kind of be flexible enough to be able to qualify.
We can talk a little bit after, but some of the things that we've done is, there's the conventional way where we use land as security. What we've also done is actually used lease agreements that people may have as security as well. But we may even get to the point that depending on the business may even stand on its own, where on a signature basis, we'll take a look at it as well. But we can have more of a conversation on it. So there's many different ways of doing it.
Thank you. Elliot, a question for you regarding investment cooperatives. Would you be able to give examples of investment cooperatives that did invest in food or farming related activities? You named a few of them across BC, so I'm curious if you've got any, if there's any records of what kind of investments they do make.
Yeah, what I've dealt with and most recently is a co-op. I mean, you can call it an investment co-op in the sense it was a number of farmers in the Thorsby area of Alberta actually that formed a co-op, bought a short line railway to maintain, that was going out of commission by CN, distribute their grain, transport their grain And they invested, and they've got quite a sophisticated capital structure that we're working with that includes external investors as well as members, and is structured as a new generation co-op to pay out patronage in a way that more kind of explicitly benefits more investment in doing business with the co-op. And they've had an enormous amount of success. And we've been restructuring so that they can succession plan effectively, because now, a lot of the original owners are 70 years old plus, and the shares are worth a lot of money, and we need to ensure the new generation can get in. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. Co-op shares can be so membership shares can be treated kind of like common shares in the sense of raising capital directly. Obviously, the co-op structure is a little bit separated between membership shares and investment shares, but you can bring in community investors as more of kind of an investment shareholder through investment shares that would not entail any kind of majority control, is more like a preferred share. So I would encourage to think creatively about that, and also think about how to do that in partnership. If you can raise 30% from members, you're going to look a lot potentially more attractive going to the credit union to get some more financing. I mean, it shows kind of proof of concept if you're able to go in the community and get more investment, tailor your membership. There's different ways you can include different kinds of members, such as a multi-stakeholder co-op, and those are experiencing quite a bit of success in Quebec, and I've formed a number of them in Alberta. Yeah, I would encourage you to think creatively before, challenge yourselves to think creatively before seeking out, conventional financing. How can we do this with members? Because it is an investment. It's skin in the game, and it's, we believe in what we're doing. Shows that to everybody else.
Thanks. We have just a couple of minutes left. Does anyone have any other burning questions? We did hear, a few struggles that are happening in the Cowichan co-op. And so, I want to open it up to the room, because I know there's a lot of experts in the room here too, to consider either connecting with Derek directly, or if you have some comments that you want to share about struggles of young cooperatives and co-ops that are having issues trying to scale. I'll just make a comment as a farmer. I know as farmers, we tend to be very reticent about trying to, go out for financing. If possible, we'll try and bootstrap, an organization based on our own volunteer hours and our own dollars, rather than, going out and asking for credit. And I just want to express how that can also be a challenge when it comes to scaling. And how, when you are both the investor in an organization, but also run your own farm, there can sometimes be conflicts in decision-making of what is good for the cooperative. And I hear this in Derek's situation, where they've chosen to cut their fees so that farmers can keep the majority of the dollars made, but that's not healthy for the cooperative. So when farmers are the ones, or any kind of investment member, any cooperative member, when you're gaining, when you've got, I guess, two hats that you're wearing, how do you grow without sacrificing one over the other? I know it's a bit of an esoteric question, but I think it's actually one that many small cooperatives face, is how to grow the cooperative, what's best for the cooperative versus necessarily what's best for the individual member. Yeah, go ahead.
so Shift Collaborative doesn't have anything to do with agriculture, but even with our worker co-op, we have young women who are working in the co-op whose lifestyle and family needs are very different from mine, for example, on the back end of my career. And so, they want to draw down more on patronage and I want to invest more in reserves, right? Like that classic. And there's something for me about, again, the values and beliefs or paradigm around collective ownership and what are we building it for? And the Italian folks talking about those reserves and how important they were, because they have a mindset that we're building for future generations. So I almost feel like that's a little growing edge for co-ops that we need to somehow think about how we embed that more deeply in our own culture, because it also feels to me like that's key for business, right? That we pay ourselves first, pay the company first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Heather, and then I just want to make sure we get Paul before we break for lunch. So go ahead.
I just want to take it from the other side of it, is that I think co-ops run into trouble, of course, with business and finances, but co-ops also run into trouble with relationships with each other. And I'm not saying that one is more important than the other, but I know that on our co-op, the land co-op I live in, and the worker co-op I work with, we both had this year outside facilitation to help us through some of the more difficult relationship-based ones. And they're exactly what you were talking about too, is that we have a different perspective and a different experience. So if we can take everyone's experience and look after everyone, but it's really about learning to trust each other and caring for each other, that is probably more fundamental even than how you're going to expand, because you can't expand if you're not together on it.
Absolutely. Paul, can I give you the last word and then?
Now I can turn the mic on after I insult someone. I'm so happy to be here, folks, as the executive director for the BC Co-op Association. And I want us just meeting friends here and connections and thoughts. And I think I just want to stop and everyone give a thank to Michelle, who's done a fantastic job bringing us together in very difficult times. We can have a whole discussion about what the next stages of co-ops are. I think there's a basis here for helping these co-ops grow and connect. And for me, there's some secret sauce to co-ops. And one of them is how it should be one of the 7 principles, and it's economies of scale when they work together across boards, across others. And we have federations and other structures around that. It's an economic choice. It's a political choice in some ways to be part of a co-op, but not the right or left politics. For me, co-ops are not right or left, they're up. And we got to work together on that. And as many have demonstrated here, we need that more now than ever. And it's those supports together. And I think we as federations are becoming more actively involved in supporting co-ops. And it's helping if you're helping your own co-op, also put time and effort into helping another. Consider working together, continuing structures, because it's true strength. Co-ops work best when they're clear on the economies of scale of what you're trying to do, either supplying a market or accessing the market. It's a key component that we often forget, and it's the key part of the business model. And part of that, I just want to take a very quick second to mention some of the people here, part of the team of Growing Supports. You've heard Elliot right here, who would love to be here, but I know he's got family things going on. We've got Bill Omakin, who's working with Elliot. He's one of the best lawyers in the world on co-ops. We've got Michelle, of course, you've heard about, and Corinne, can you stand up? Any questions about supports for co-ops? And the thing, we've started Access, which is a co-op to get shared services that usually wouldn't afford by yourself. We have this gentleman right here, who is going to be our chief technology officer, a computer whiz in terms of helping smaller co-ops with technical needs in terms of getting that support at rates that are far more accessible. We've got Seth, who's working with us on the investment co-ops and how to structure that, working with Elliot. So if any of you want to talk to him, please do so. We've got Eva, who's working with her partner, Mario, on all kinds of things tech as well too, and data. So a great list of people here. I've probably forgotten someone. Who did I forget?
LV.
Oh shit, LV's not important. He's secondary to all of this, but sorry. Very excited to be working with LVS. Many of you know him from Van City and the partners. The last thing I'll just put out as a challenge, and to Paulie, you've been very gracious in responding to direct questions. and to all our other guests here around the investment co-op component. We did some strategic planning with our boards, or combined boards, about a month ago. One of the first things that came up that Bill facilitated, one of the most important things, is lack of information and awareness about co-ops. We have to do a better job of that. There's only so much we can do. And the challenge is, and particularly when it comes maybe to investment, is people in your position, I'm looking to your colleagues here, you're looking at financing. And if you see something, whoa, a co-op component could work here, it's incumbent on us to push that. Same thing with our government friends and colleagues. If you see a co-op potential where scale can happen, where people can work together, part of the education is you folks. And as Elliot has said, these things will be much more successful from the investment co-op perspective if we get 20, 30% of equity, patient capital coming in to talk to you. You're going to look at that much more closely, I would believe. And that includes partnerships and cooperation between credit unions, between government sources and others. So final word of that. And again, I want everyone to give one last hand to Michelle because she's doing a great job.
I knew I picked a good person to end on. So thanks for that, Paul. Thank you all for being so patient and asking great questions. Look forward to even more discussions happening throughout the rest of the conference. So thanks again, everybody. Back to you, Chris.
All right. Well, and not to delay lunch, but just to say that thank you everyone for your participation over the morning. This afternoon, well, we start with lunch, which is sponsored by Cooperatives and Mutuals Canada. So enjoy. It's a double-sided buffet. We're going to throw caution to the wind and just say line up when you feel like it. We're not going to try to manage tables and so on. And if we have a tour of the Stir Food Hub this evening that is available. And if you have transportation to offer, there are sign-up sheets down at the registration table. So if you have a ride to offer or you're looking for a ride, take a look there because there's you can sign up there. All right, thank you everyone. And we will reconvene at 1:30.